Welcome to part 3.
All right. We were at the conclusion, but we wanted to go ahead and give a little bit more time in this so we can go into a little more depth and detail. Role playing, the stigma of role playing basically comes down to Dungeons and Dragons. So we do want to discuss that. And would you read Colossians 3:21 again?
Okay, let me pull that up. Stand by.
Most Christians that I know that have a bad taste about Dungeons and Dragons either don't understand what it is at all, or they played it as an act of rebellion against their parents, and it became something evil for them.
Yeah. So it says, Colossians 3:21, fathers, do not provoke your children lest they become discouraged. And in my time playing Dungeons and Dragons with lots of different people, that has very often young people, that's the number one reason that they will gravitate toward it and start playing it, is because, well, my parents said it was evil. And they were never given any reason why it was or anything. So that is them acting in rebellion. Or some of them, it wasn't even in rebellion. It was, I've been told it was evil, and I am recently learning to come out and just kind of question everything. And I'm going to find out for myself whether this is evil or not. And whether you agree with that or not, it was them exploring something that they
and
had not
children
been allowed to.
Right, and children will do that. Don't automatically assume because your children are choosing something different from yourself that they are in rebellion. That is an important thing to stop, ask for discernment and guidance. Kathryn, when she handed me her 400 plus page novel at, I don't remember how old you were whenever you gave that to me.
I don't know. I started writing it at 10. I think it was maybe a couple of years into it because I'd hidden it because I was so worried. We never ever did dragons.
We never did
unicorns
anything like that.
Or magic. We did not even watch movies with that. Conan the Barbarian was the closest we came to. And
no, actually it wasn't the first one, it was the second one, because the first one, I don't want people thinking that I actually let you watch the first one.
Right.
It was the second Conan movie.
It was the second one, which is a little more clean.
Thank you.
Family friendly.
Thank you. And when the boys came along, we were a little about that one too, because of the modesty issues. But anyway,
but yeah, I handed it to you with like fear and trembling, because it had a dragon.
Well, and to give a little bit of background there, I was not raised in the church. I was not raised in the church. I had given my heart to the Lord at a very young age at a vacation Bible school, but I was not raised in that. I have since come to be grateful for that. And I'll go into more detail throughout videos. So make sure you subscribe if you want to learn more. But I was raised in the New Age. So by the time I was 12 years old, fantasy, fantastical things, magic, crystal balls, tarot cards, all that kind of stuff was a normal part of my life. And I could effectively do a reading on anybody at any time, even over the phone, by the time I was 12.
Yeah. All right. Don't ever write off New Age stuff as, well, that's just fake or pretend. It's not very real.
It's very real. It is very real.
Very real.
Yes,
it is seriously, very real. But don't be afraid of it either.
Don't be afraid of it. So I married a preacher's son right out of high school. And his parents lovingly helped me to grow in the Lord and learn new things. And a new friend, I came into our home, and I had the little crystal ball setting out and little unicorns and things. And the girls were really tiny at that time. And she questioned me, and I said, well, they were heirlooms. And she said, is that really what they are? Is that what the spirits are telling you? And after she left, I just really sat there and prayed about it and thought about it. And then I turned around and I threw them all in the trash and got rid of them all. So I cleaned house. It made a huge difference in me at the time to clean house. And I was raised by a hippie. So I just got rid of anything in my life that had anything to do with herbs and things like that. And the Lord gradually started bringing those things back into my life because I've struggled with health most of my life. And he gradually started bringing in herbs and things. And like, no, I created the plants. I created these things. So, of course, he didn't create a crystal ball. So I don't have a crystal ball, and I would not have one, and I don't use them. And even those
very specifically speaks in the Bible about divination,
about things like that. So we started going, yes, we started
specific about
going through the Bible. I began homeschooling the girls, and we just started in the Bible and just going through. We did that as history. We did it as science. We just started going through. And the Lord started giving discernment on what things he had purposes for. And I ended up publishing the book on the constellations based on. There's a lot of things that the New Age and paganism has taken and twisted and made wicked that God originally meant for good. And we need to redeem those things. So there are some things that God had wonderful, lovely purposes for that we need to be discerning about. If he tells you to just stay away from something, just stay away from it. That's fine. So at this point in time, when Kathryn handed me this, there was no My Little Pony. There was
barely any Disney princesses.
Like I said, we had gotten rid of there was not. So this came very, very much out of her imagination, this book. And I would arguably say the main character is a dragon.
Yes.
It's an amazing analogy. She did an excellent job. And then we ended up changing churches and had a pastor become an active part of our life who gave the girls the Hobbit and Lord of the Rings cartoon series.
And he would even challenge us. He's like, find God in this, because the person who made these was first and foremost a Christian. And whether he wanted it to or not, that leaked in there. And he did a very good job.
And I will say that some people will debate the Christianity based on Tolkien and C.S. Lewis's involvement in a certain secret society, maybe. And I would just bring up that in their time, they were living in a predominantly Christian worldview that is very different than ours today. So the books, even Louise May Alcott, she was not a Christian. She was transcendentalist through and through, but her books have a predominantly Christian worldview from the time period she was in that is just, it's something we don't have today.
Far exceeds anything you will read in Percy Jackson.
Yes. So it may not be John Bunyan. And we did go to John Bunyan. We did, Pilgrim's Progress, pull Pilgrim's Progress out. There's all kinds of creatures in Pilgrim's Progress. So if you think Pilgrim's Progress and John Bunyan is okay, then here you go.
And the simple fact is, and the Bible talks about this too, and the Apostle Paul, that everything Our world is corrupted. It has been touched and ruined by sin. It was originally perfect, but it is now broken. And the same with us. Everything that can be corrupted will be, or given an element of corruption. We will
And there's
find a
nothing new
way.
under the sun.
There is nothing new under the sun. We
Nothing
will
new
find a
under the sun.
way.
That is
If it,
also in the Bible.
if it isn't broken, we will find a way to break it. Period. End of
Yes.
story. We even broke it.
There,
It just, you know. So
yeah, we could go for
we
days.
could go forever. And
But yes, so anytime you run into any kind of game that you're doing, and really we need to do this with life, period. You need to look at the pros and the cons.
yes.
So can it be used to educate, illustrate, or encourage positive behavior? Even if you're not playing the game, discuss it. Talk to them about it. So Dungeons and Dragons has become extremely popular. So I'm not encouraging you to play the game with your children. Not
Right.
at all. What I am encouraging you to do is actually look at it and talk to your children about why different elements in it are not for your family at this time. Okay.
And, not all children are role-playing oriented. Some children are more sports oriented. Some children are more, music oriented. There are a lot of people that role play just doesn't jive with them,
Right.
And
that's
fine.
okay.
But if you have a child that comes up and they are more storytelling oriented and they want to express their creativity in another world, in another setting, as another person, don't immediately just slap that down as bad, or you will discourage them.
And don't just look for a holy version either. Because I've seen people too that'll say, okay, Dungeons and Dragons is bad, but then I found this C.S. Lewis version that I'm going to do with my children, and that may end up being fine, but look at the elements and what's going on before you start introducing your children into playing with the Pevensies.
Yes, I would even go on to argue that, again, I'm going to go back to, we're humans, we're sin creatures. We are creatures of sin. It is in our DNA. And if we can find a way to break it, we will break it. And
yes. So if your children have that in there, I mean, Kathryn has a very imaginative brain. So if she was going to take something to the dark side, she would be the one to do it. And no matter what it was that we were doing, it took a lot of diligence on my part to stay on top of that.
Again, teaching your children and teaching yourself too, how to rewire your brain and think on those things that are good and right and just. And I would argue that if you constantly go look for the quote unquote holy version of something and always trying to grab an alternative, it's not solving anything. In fact, I have seen it in the past just complicate issues, because I have seen children that where their parents constantly went to a quote unquote better alternative, not know what to do when they had no better alternative and they were faced with the real thing. They did not have the tools in their toolbox to learn how to control.
There is always, when they are out in the world, there is always the possibility that you may be at the supermarket and somebody may try to mug you, or some bad thing may happen, and you may need to act in a way that you may not want to act. And so we need to be able to empower each other. Again, preparation, to be prepared. If you don't want to do it this way, fine. Don't just try to find a holy way to do it either, but try to find what you feel is
Going,
good and bad, and really delve into the discussion.
yeah. And going back into my history with Dungeons and Dragons and stuff. So I originally, my first role play was text-based, right, with pen pals, writing, literally writing, physically writing letters back and forth with pen pals. We covered that in the last video. And that was my first experience with role play. Later,
They had no idea what they were doing.
They
had no idea what they were doing. I recognized it because of my non-Christian background. I recognized what was happening. I saw some dangers because the other children's families had no clue. So I brought it up to the other parents. The other parents were like, oh no, woohoo, that's not, there ended up being problems.
Yes.
There did end up being problems for the other children. And of course, because I was aware of it beforehand, we got blamed for it. So, which is fine.
Because my mother was aware, she was able on my end of it to help me control that and use it
to direct and guide. It did end up
doing anything bad. We weren't, summoning demons or something. We were pretending we were princesses. Our homes that we were living in,
right,
stuck in, basically, were our castles and our kingdoms, and we had all
the problem ended up being in a romantic sense,
yes,
which is something that I do not
playing with romance. That is the number one evil thing for girls. Okay, it's not.
It is. It is.
Romance will kill a girl fast. All right. So
but you can't do a lot if you and your family are reading fiction books, and if you believe your children need to read 100 books every week or whatever it is. My children up to a certain age did not read anything I had not read before them, or that I didn't read with them.
Again, no matter whether you're playing a game or reading books or whatever, you are the parent. You are in control of the game of life, basically, right now.
Right. And not to be controlling.
Not to be controlling.
But to help guide and direct the situation and their thought process. And if you've got that communication open, then they're going to feel more willing and open and able to ask questions.
Yes.
And those questions will help you head off any problems. But if you have a family that's doing this letter writing pen pal thing in between, and they're reading Janet Oak novels in the process, then you've got you're compounding a situation that
people who
that's
read,
gonna blow up in your face.
Tend to have, especially if they read a lot of books, tend to have pretty active imaginations, and definitely girls will role play in their head their own fantasies. And it's often not sexual or anything like that, where that it can go that direction for boys. But for girls, it is more the romantic toxicity that
it becomes unrealistic. Yes, unhealthy, unrealistic. I encouraged our girls to do things that they would not be able to do with a husband and children, with a family. Yeah. So if you want to write a book, if you want to raise animals, if you want to do this thing, then make your achievements now, and don't be concerned about romance. So I think more people need to do that. A lot more people need to do that.
So, I mean, that is an excellent example of how something good, romance is good. If you don't have romance in your marriage, there is something wrong. But it can also, because we are fallen sinful creatures, we break it.
Yeah.
And so
Most problem with marriages and relationships today is because people have unrealistic expectations, and children need to see an example of good, of a healthy romance. They don't need to be trying to play it out in their heads.
And so something, with my first text-based role play, and then I did lots of other role plays, but then my parents were, my mom especially, very involved in teaching me just through life, and teaching me apologetics, basically, of the Bible. This is what we believe and why we believe it. We don't just go off of blind faith. We know what we are doing. And sometimes God does call us to just have faith, but most of the time he's got it all listed right there. He doesn't want you to just blindly believe, because then you're a sheep. And he doesn't want sheeple. He wants his sheep to know him. And having that training under my belt on all varieties of things, when I did finally get introduced to Dungeons and Dragons, and don't ever think that your children won't be introduced to role play of any type, even the sexual type. Prepare them for it, okay? They will be introduced to it at some point. So when I was introduced to Dungeons and Dragons, I was already prepared.
Mom brains just going, oh my goodness, I just don't even want to think.
So whenever I was actually introduced to Dungeons and Dragons, it was not by Christian people, or people that see themselves as Christian anyway. And I was quickly able to discern that it is a game and it is a tool. I was quickly able to learn that I do have control over my character. My character can be good or can be bad. And the game master has control over this game. And I did play in a couple of games where good behavior was punished and bad behavior was rewarded. And I knew instantly that is evil. That is people in this game living out demented fantasies. But then I have played in other D&D games, and my most favorite D&D games were where good behavior was almost always rewarded. It also had a lot of real life stuff where you do this good thing and you get spat on, basically, but you did a good thing. And the game master would find a way to try and reward us. But at the same time, we were still dealing with a basically real life situation where people are going to stab you in the back no matter how good you are. And it was the most enjoyable, most rewarding, and it helped me as a young adult. Well, I would say young adult. I was in my early 20s, I want to say, basically.
As a young adult.
Yeah, I played in my 20s. So it helped me learn how to be more bold in things. It definitely helped me learn how to communicate with people better. And it just helped me figure out, by playing different characters, okay, this character, I kind of like these aspects of her and her personality. This character over here, I like this, and this, but not so much this and this. It doesn't work for me. And so I was able to kind of just build myself as a person and my ideals and stuff based off of that. But then because I'd had the previous training and guidance from my parents, I knew when to spot something that was evil. And evil, essentially, evil is whenever you take something good and you twist it. And that is rebellion, and essentially. I've seen kids not brush their teeth out of rebellion. That doesn't work out very well for them. Brush your teeth, kids. But I have seen kids not brush their teeth out of rebellion. Does that make toothbrushes evil? No.
Right.
It means that they took something good and they twisted it to something bad.
So give your children the discernment to be able to see, because once they get to a certain point, I would have never chosen Dungeons and Dragons And before I was able to get in and play, and I will only play basically with other Christians. Uh, there has to be, there can be non-Christians in the group, but I need to know that I've got Christians in the group for me to feel comfortable with it. And that's just me. But before I was able to actually take myself and do that, I had to figure out, okay, what is the format of the game? Where can the game go? And what are my boundaries, my personal boundaries regarding this game? Because of my growing up, I am open to some spiritual things that other people aren't sensitive to. So I like to keep my distance still to this day from certain things because of that, because it's an area that Satan knows me very well in because of the way I grew up. So I want to be very careful with that. So
and all of that to go back to, it is personal. Personally, what works for you, what works for your family. Like I said earlier, not all kids are role-playing bent or leaning. And if they aren't, fine. You probably won't ever need to have this conversation with them. But these videos they are for your education so that you know role-playing is not just Dungeons and Dragons. It can be any game your kids play. And your kids,
or even trauma response, even emergency management and trauma response can be traumatic if they don't know what they're going into. If you've got a child who is not bent toward imaginative play, you still need to do some worst case scenario type training with them.
That was a huge thing with my bonus boys whenever I first came into this family, is that if anything the least bit traumatic happened, they would vapor lock. They would have no clue what to do, and they didn't know what to do. Time. And so through role play, just not having characters or wizards or spells or any of that stuff, just, okay, this happens, what are you going to do? And then helping.
We're going to go camping. If such and so happens, this is the plan. If such and so happens, this is the plan.
Yeah.
You know,
we have one year, the first year we were married, there was a big tornado that came straight toward our town. And it, you know, by the grace of God, just jumped our town and moved on to the next. Sucked for them. But it skipped us completely and we didn't get any damage in town. But the tornado came straight at us. We could see it in the clouds and we were hearing it on the radio. And our youngest son came to us and was crying his eyes out. And he's like, Daddy, what happens if a tornado hits our house? And instead of telling him, well, we're going to be fine, you know, or whatever, we went through, well, I don't know, what would happen? What do you think we should do first if a tornado hit our house? And it took him back. And he's like, well, we'll have to find a place to live. Okay, where would you like to live? And then we ran through all of those situations and brought his trauma down to where he could manage it. And now he is not terrified of tornadoes. He sees a tornado as a natural phenomenon that happens and it can cause disaster.
We saw the survival of that by the way we've done with our family with the fires, with the wildfires. And if you haven't seen that, hopefully Kathryn can put a link to that. It's over on one of her channels, the race through the wildfire. They were able to videotape driving through wildfires. And the reason was we role played through worst case scenarios with them, and
on a regular basis.
And they were essentially
not to be fear mongering. Don't be fear mongering, but work through, okay, what do you do next?
And empower them to be able to think through scenarios. That's what it is. It's not, the fear mongering thing is just people not wanting to face reality around them. So, you know, cognitive dissonance on those people. They didn't make it that far in this video. I'm absolutely sure.
Yes.
Yes. So yeah, we need to wrap this up. This has been a lot of fun. We are planning more topics. I think our next topic, we're planning to talk about the patriarch. And femininity and masculinity, and I'm looking forward to that. I'm trying to softly move into some deeper and more volatile, potentially volatile subjects, but I've seen a lot of misunderstanding and miscommunication these days on some issues that I think we can have a lot more clarity on.
Yeah.
So this has been
deliberate, but that's another topic.
Yes. Yes. So you can put, let's see, we've got contact information on the next slide, right?
I think so. Yes.
There we go. So this is how you can contact us. Got my email address down there in the bottom. I'm at prairiedusttrail.com. Kathryn is at kathrynjfogleman.com. She is white now, but that's her website, and that's where you can find her books and stuff.
Insert white supremacy joke here.
Let's not. She's Native American. Okay. It just, good grief, guys. Yeah, there's so many. We may get to that one too. Oh, we will definitely get to that one too, won't we? Yep. We've got a list. So if you want to, if there's something you'd like to hear us hash out, then, put it in the comments or shoot me an email. If you'd like to be a guest, let us know. We're open to a lot of things right now. We've just, at this point, kind of restarted this channel, started a new channel, and are just kind of getting going. If you're hearing it on the podcast, thank you so much for joining us during this time. Make sure to like, share, subscribe, all the things, and definitely give us some input. We're open to your discussion. Do you think anything to do with role playing is evil? Yeah, I'm assuming if you've made it this far in the video that you've got other thoughts, but we really want to have discussion on all this.
If you vehemently disagree with us, please do make your own video and tag us in it and share. So
let's have some back and forth. That would be, I have absolutely no problem with that. If you are going to leave a negative comment down below, I ask that you be family friendly. If you start cussing or being derogatory, we'll delete it.
Yeah. We'll just remember.
That's the thing. Just, if it's not safe for a 6-year-old to read, then don't write it. So that's all that we ask.
That's my timer that I need to go. So
yes. Okay. Well, thank you all for coming, and we will see you again.
All right. Figure out how to stop recording.